Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is your...
What do I do? Cut it. No, wait, hold it. Well, keep it going.
Photo News Fix. This fix is brought to you by this orange box over on FroKnowsPhoto.com, because if you'd like me to send you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations, just look for this orange box over on FroKnowsPhoto.com, put your name, email address in it, hit send it. I'm gonna send you that guide for free. First up, Fuji has announced yet another new camera, and no, it's not the X100 VII.
So what is it?
This is the Fuji Instax Wide 400. Now, if you haven't heard of Instax, you're probably over a certain age, like, Gen X or a boomer, but that's okay. To put it simply, remember Polaroids? Yeah. Okay, it's like that, but made by a company that's actually still in business and thriving in the instant film world. No one does it any better than Fuji when it comes to instant film. They've done such a good job that kids these days know Instax and don't even know Polaroid.
How about if we get a Polaroid together, okay?
Anyway, the Wide 400 creates images that are 2.4 by 3.9 inches on a massive 3.4 by 4.3 piece of film. That's more than twice the size of Instax Mini. Now, there's really no need to dive too deep into the specs with this camera because it's meant to be a point and shoot only. It certainly does look big, but does have some fun features. The main feature is it shoots wide, so no need to scrouch in closer together unless you really want to get really close to someone. It has a self-timer, plus a little accessory to allow you to use it if you don't have a tripod, a flash, and best yet, develops in roughly 90 seconds versus modern day Polaroids that take 15 minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes. 15! Now keep in mind, every photo that you take will set you back $1.57, so choose wisely who you decide to send those pics to. What? Don't look at me weird. Polaroid literally had a camera from the 70s called the Swinger.
Meet the Swinger, the incredible new Polaroid land camera.
Is that a hot dog going in her mouth? I think not. Now, if you think this camera is for you, get ready to fork over $150. Film is sold separately. Next up, I didn't expect to see a new film camera in this day and age announced. Pentax.
Wait, what?
Yes, Pentax has released a Pentax 17 compact film camera. Now, before I get to the specs, of which there aren't many because this is a film camera, let me read something interesting from the press release. The compound annual growth, or CAGR, C-A-G-R, for the global film camera market is predicted to be 5.2% through 2030, and a quick search of the hashtag film photography on Instagram pulls up more than 42.6 million posts. Now, I'm not sure if you're like me, but I certainly love when companies pull out meaningless metrics to justify things. Anyway, that's the only cynical thing I have to say about this camera because I think it's unique and cool. Now, I'm trying to see if they will send me a copy to play with because maybe I'll take it out into the world and see what I can create. Now, back in 2020, Pentax announced the Film Camera Project with the goal of bringing back film cameras. The crazy thing is they had to bring back old engineers who were already retired to work with new engineers on creating film cameras. And what they created in the Pentax 17 is a camera that shoots half-frame photos. That means you get 2 photos within a 35mm frame, thus doubling the amount of photos you can take. Sure, each photo is half the size, which means half the resolution, but who cares? You get twice as many shots before you need to process your film. It also means you might lose way more frames when you accidentally open the back of the camera and expose it to light, ruining all of your film. Remember that, kids. Film is light sensitive. You can't open the back, or if you forget to rewind your film, you're screwed and you lose a lot of images. Thus, the joy of film photography. Anyway, you've got a fixed focal length 25mm f3.5 lens, which in 35mm terms is a 37mm equivalent. Now, it uses a zone focus system with 6 different focusing zones and is pretty much fully automatic outside of setting your ISO and exposure comp, but you do need to set the focus, which is manual. There's a built-in flash bright optical viewfinder with a few lights inside to let you know when the flash is powered on or if your photo will be underexposed, but keep in mind you're not looking through the actual lens that you're shooting through. Sadly, it doesn't have multiple card slots or shoot RAW, And that's a joke, clearly. At the end of the day, I think Pentax did a fantastic job devising a modern-day film camera that's fun and functional. It comes out in June at a price of $499.95. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below. Real quick, before we get to the last story, the first Frono's Photo Bootcamp reboot sold out in 3 days.
Fine, sellout.
So I added a second one here in Philadelphia on Saturday, July 27th. There's only 3 spots of 15 remaining. To lock yours in, head on over to bit.ly/July27fro, and I hope to see you there. Now, back to the fix. And finally, Nikon has announced the Z6 III. If you haven't checked out our hands-on real-world preview just yet, please give it a watch after this fix, and as it goes into a lot more detail than I will go in here. I want to start off by saying the Z6 III is finally a contender.
We're contenders now.
And I'll explain what that means at the end of this news story. The Z6 III sports an all-new partially stacked 24.5 megapixel sensor. Now, partially stacked means just that. It's partially stacked sensor tech and part non-stacked sensor tech. Now, stacked sensors have faster readout speeds, rendering the mechanical shutter pretty much useless. Now, the partially stacked doesn't do away with the need for a mechanical shutter in the Z6 III, but it does have the fastest readout speed of any camera less than $4,500, according to Nikon. Now, you still might get some bowing and warping of a baseball player swinging the bat or golf club swinging, but it's fully usable in my book. You can shoot at 14 frames per second with the mechanical and 20 frames per second raw with the electronic shutter. Now, I shot Muay Thai, kids playing in the park, as well as professional baseball when I took it out to the Phillies, and I have no fear in shooting sports with just the electronic shutter. That's how good the readout speeds are. There was no issue pushing ISO, as 6400 produced extremely clean raw files, really clean raw files. Now on to autofocus, which has always been Nikon's Achilles heel, at least in the mirrorless world. The autofocus was leaps and bounds better than the Z6 II. It's much closer to the Z8 and Z9, which is a great sign in terms of autofocus. But keep in mind, it still has autofocus quirks that we've become used to with Nikon cameras. Now, before you yell at me and tell me I don't know what I'm doing or talking about, if you're a Nikon shooter and you haven't used a modern-day Canon or Sony camera, will you kindly sit down and shut up? Because you don't know what you're talking about and you don't know what you're missing.
Ignorance is bliss.
Anyone who's picked up a modern-day Canon or Sony camera and has come from a Nikon knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Plausible deniability.
Now, with that being said, if you can't work around Nikon's minor focus limitations, minor I said, that's on you.
Oh, now you blame shift?
Anyway, in terms of video features, Nikon's loaded the Z6 III with everything from raw recording internally to 6K up to 30p, 5.4K up to 60, 4K up to 60p, and 4K 120 with a DX crop. The Z6 III is an extremely well-rounded, feature-packed, and functional camera for $2,500. In my opinion, it outshines Sony's a7 IV and gives Canon's R6 Mark II a run for its money. Nikon nailed it with the Z6 III. Now go watch my full preview if you want to know more. And there you have it. That's your photo news fix this time around. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.